Amber, thanks again for doing this. So this is your first month. You just started this position. I know I've I see that you've been involved in other organizations in the Lansing, Jackson area. So if I could first have you let us get to know you, tell us a little bit about yourself first of all.
Absolutely. So, like what you said, I have been a regional to the Lansing area for a lot of recent positions, at least in the last 5 years. I am a Michigan State graduate, go green. I in from the College of Communications, Arts, and Sciences. I have a background and a degree in public relations and advertising. So I've been working on my career in that realm, working with Consumers Energy at first for communications, and then being picked up by the City of Jackson. For the last 2 years, I've been the assistant for the City of Jackson city manager. And that position is very heavily integrated in operations, government operations and economic development. And while I served as the assistant in Jackson, I was also the planning commissioner here for Meridian Township. And this position, when it was available, it was just a perfect segue for me with my experience in government, working in local government, to being here now home every day in my own township, because I was commuting. So it was quite a trek every day.
I'm just curious, you mentioned the media and public relations, that you went to school for media public relations. So would you say that this is, in a way, a different path from media and public relations?
I'm not necessarily the way I looked at it. Like, I wasn't going into graphics or media or doing any media in the sense of like film or journalism specifically. It was going to be a position, a communications position, to work in that realm, as like dealing with the public and doing public relations for a business. So that's been my lifelong dream. And my work in government still utilizes a lot of that, but it's got some differences for sure.
Would you say so it sounds like what you're saying is you would think of this job as more of a communication type job and less about a political type job?
It's definitely a mix. But you do have to use like very good communication skills, because you're dealing with complicated information on both sides. The complexity of a process that a government takes in order to bring a development into their community, that's complicated, and so you have to explain that to developers. And it's complicated for residents to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, and the plans and the resources of funding and that kind of thing. So you have to be able to be clear explaining that to residents as well.
So why did you want, I know you mentioned the commute was a lot shorter, but why else did you want to work for the township?
Well, I mean, my husband and I, we have a son, and I think it's one thing to hear your parents say something, but it's another to watch them. And so I know he's very active. He's very in tune with the things that we do, our employment and what we do for a living. And he's going to be able to watch me affect change in the community that we live in. And he's going to see that it's not as hard as we might make it out to be, that it really just is about being involved and just, having an appetite for wanting to be involved. And, having the willingness to work with people. So.
I see. You may have mentioned this a little bit in the last question, but I guess this part of the question is, what led you to work in a government position in Jackson? Because that's kind of how it started, like government-wise.
Yeah. So the government leg came with my recruitment from working for Consumers Energy, doing communications, to assistant 2 for the City of Jackson. And really, I was just recruited. So I was doing a community project in Jackson, and the city manager just started asking me some questions and said, I really think you'd be good at working in government, and I think you'd be good at community building and planning, and brought me along.
So, what would your goals, if you had any goals in this position, what would they be, or what are they? I'm sorry.
So our internally, our goals are um, making a precise, efficient process for developers so that they understand the community's expectation when they're coming to us and presenting us with a new project idea. Focusing on and prioritizing the Okemos, Village of Okemos Pika and the Village of Hazlet Pika, right? Those two four corners areas in our community are very high traffic. Uh, People see them all the time. People bike them and traverse them all the time. And they're kind of like our two areas that really hasn't seen any development in quite a long time. They're becoming kind of an eyesore and they're underutilized. So we're really looking to prioritize development in those areas. So that's a big major goal. And then another would be fostering better relationships with the community at large and the business world. So this position, when I got on, came under the M team, it was changed to include neighborhoods. So it's not just economic development, but it's neighborhoods as well. Because every single development is, starting to back up to or be close to a development or impact, a neighborhood development that's nearby. And I want us to have a more organized approach to talking to the community about new projects that we're going to bring on, and letting the developers talk about the project that they're going to bring to the community. And so that even if it doesn't end up being what every single resident wants to hear, that they understand why it's coming to the community and why we've chosen them.
Just backing up to the economic part of it just for a second. Do you believe that is in the times that we're in, it's even more important now to be available to developers and be willing to work with them in this period of time where we are in a pandemic and we are in an economic crisis and a public health crisis? Do you believe development-wise it's even more important now to work with them?
I think
I'm sorry, this also goes for even aspiring business owners. My bad.
Right. Yes. So I want to kind of reframe it as it's definitely important for a community to have a good relationship with developers and their businesses, but it's going to take us more time to retain our current businesses. It's going to take more time to bring in a new business than it is to retain our current businesses, right? They're already here. So we're looking at the approach of what can we do with our businesses that are supporting our community now, and what do we do to make our process efficient for the new developers and the new opportunities that are coming in. So it's kind of a twofold, I think. I don't think it's necessarily like just developers are so important right now, because developers are going to go to any opportunity, and our community has so much going for it that will always be considered a great opportunity, right? Because we're close to proximity to Michigan State, in a part of a very high trafficked regional area in the state of Michigan, only so far away from Detroit, so our connection to how easy it is for a development to come here is pretty simple. It's more just making sure that we're efficient and that a developer understands what the process is. And then coming to the table with great options for partnering together and for doing things together. So I think it's twofold the same. I think it's just I think focusing on a business model though, and coming up with what a community is going to do or can do during this pandemic is very important.
Do you believe, you mentioned at the beginning that it's hard to bring a developer in, but I don't remember the exact wording.
It's harder to bring in a new development, right, than it is to retain something that's already here.
Do you believe it's especially hard to bring in a new development now? Do you believe the pandemic has changed that?
Yes, there are certain things about certain developments are not going to be springing up as popular as others, right? So we're going to see probably more residential opportunities then we're going to see new, large commercial. The beauty about that is that it takes a certain amount of people living in an area to bring in your great big box office, your Trader Joe's, your big name brand things. So those things that people are looking for eagerly, those will happen once we bring in more people.
You mentioned Trader Joe's. Are there any plans to bring in Trader Joe's?
No, I'm just using
Darn
Trader
it.
Joe's just throwing that out there as a big name brand, that's looking for a certain amount of people to live in a population before they say like, yeah, that's a place I want to move.
I don't know if they would go into Meridian, but I think a Trader Joe's in that area is needed considering what's around there. That's me, but so
yeah, so it's mostly, all of those things, any of those stores like that, right? Any of those big brand name box offices, they're going to need to see a good heavy population traffic, right? And it's going to need to be a good location for them. So it's always something to consider. But yes, certain developments are definitely kind of either, pausing or postponing certain projects, just waiting to kind of see what the economic environment is going to be like, and others are not, right? So it just really depends. Residential is doing pretty well right now.
I know one of those developments that was supposed to come to Meridian, but they ended up calling it off, was the Wayfair calling center.
Yeah.
I believe it was last year they announced they were bringing a call center here, but a few weeks ago they said that they are shifting to kind of, virtual method. Do you believe that, if I don't think that was the exact wording, but if you think, that's technically working from home, that is a virtual method. Do you believe that that is that is because of the pandemic? Some of us have been used to working from home for a while, and we've all found new ways to work from home, and in some cases it works better. There are pros and cons, but do you believe that's why it's because of the pandemic?
I think the pandemic definitely has something to do with it. I think I do also remember very shortly before they made their announcement to come to our community that they had been talking about doing some consolidations around the nation and other places. So I don't want to specify and call them out because they didn't say this, but I would think that it had to do with the pandemic and that they're looking at just how they're holding operations right now, and maybe another space on top of it wasn't in the cards.
If you had to guess which one was more of a factor than the other, pandemic or consolidation, which would you say?
I would think the pandemic probably weighed heavier on this particular situation. I think a lot of businesses have had to try to be adaptable, and I think even now, the full plan of how to move forward isn't concrete for a lot of businesses, or in general operations. It's kind of hard. We all kind of talk about when COVID's over. We're still expecting it to immediately stop, and then we can kind of get back to how things were. Not realizing that maybe this is obviously going to have some repercussions that we don't even see right now, and I think that could possibly have had something to do with it, that they were just thinking like, let's be proactive with COVID.
So how big is that a huge blow to the area and to the city?
I don't think regionally, Meridian Township is a very good regional partner. We're always looking to work with Lansing, East Lansing, and any of the other surrounding communities to make sure that this stays a very strong economic region. So I don't think it was necessarily like a huge blow. I think it's always a disappointment to the community to hear of something new and exciting, and then it's not going to happen. But it was out of the control of the township for this situation. It's the developer is unwilling to move forward right now. So
I see. Unwilling, you say unwilling to move
Well,
forward.
not unwilling, but I mean, I guess that they're not going to move forward
Okay,
right now. So
I see.
we would love it, right? But it,
Right,
they've kind of made their point that right now it's not going to work for them.
right. Now, with regards to city projects, I know two of those projects was Village of Hazlet and Village of Meridian. Um, at least, I don't know if I've seen the Village of Hazlet one, but I have seen the Village of Meridian, and yes, it is not hard to see how much that's become an eyesore. So how's that go? I'm just curious as to how that project is moving along. I know they had to stop. I believe, if I remember correctly, they had the funding, but they needed more. But then the pandemic hit and they stopped. They had to stop, but then they kind of picked it back up over the summer.
Yes, yes. So movement has the needle on that project has moved a little bit. We were able to, so there's some bureaucratic steps as far as there are different, basically pockets of funding that they might be able to utilize to put, and that's kind of what communities do when they think of public-private partnerships, is providing, this is an avenue that you can take to do this on the project. This is an avenue that you can take to do this on the project. And it allows the developer maybe to save a little bit of money or to stretch the development a little bit further. So our township has some of those options available, and one of those was through the use of the Redevelopment Fund. And an application has to be submitted to our local economic development corporation, and that board of 11 will decide if they approve the application or not for basically eligible costs. And this board did. So they recently approved that application and recommended it to the township board. And the township board held a public hearing and did review and approve that. So we are moving forward on that piece of funding. And that piece of funding is tied specifically to demolition and deadlines for demolition, hopefully. So hopefully we'll start seeing some movement on that project here in the near future, and at least the beginning stages of getting that started will begin with demolition.
I see. Now, is that still on time? Is the project still on time for like?
I don't believe the project is still on time as what was initially stated to the public when this project was like starting to be dreamed up and put onto paper. So I think,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think the demolition is going to be maybe a month after what was initially quoted.
Okay. And then can you talk about, do you have any updates for any other projects going on in the area?
We do actually. So the Hazlet Marathon at the corner of Hazlet and Marsh, they've got a demo permit, so they're going to be under construction. And I believe the construction phase is going to be quite long because it's an extensive, very intense change to the property. I believe that's 6 months construction from start to finish. So it'll be done by early spring or mid-spring next year. High Caliber has done an expansion in the mall. And so that's, if you're looking for some indoor recreation, that's a great place that's recently gone under some improvements, as well as where the new Chipotle is in right now. That new development is still underway. The other 3 tenants in that block, they are not yet ready to open, but they will be soon. And then I think some people have probably seen some movement going on in Anna's house. That's on the farther end of West Grand River Road, Grand River Avenue, which was the former Pizza Hut. That's got some permits issued right now, and they're still in some remodeling phases. We should see some real improvement to the way the outside of the True Value on Jolly Road. So there's a True Value on Jolly that looks like, it's been kind of abandoned, but we're going to get some windows put in there pretty soon and kind of bring that facelift up into the area over there. And then the elevation homes, or the elevation phase apartments that are over in that area too, off Jolly, those are getting very close to like being complete. I think the last 2 buildings will be finalized in spring of next year. And I think I have 3 that are going up right now.
I see.
So Klingman's, the Toys R Us, the former Toys R Us, they're very close to getting their occupancy as well.
I see. So now I want to talk a little bit about the LEAF grants. I always think it's LEAP, not LEAF.
No, it is. It's LEAP.
It is LEAP?
Yeah, it's Lansing Area Economic. It's Lansing Economic Area Partnership. So it's basically like a regional partnership for economic development. But yes, it's LEAP.
So if I remember correctly, there were a couple thousand requests for funding around, I think it was either the area or the state. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it was the area. Yeah.
It was the area. And I believe it was 43 or something businesses.
Yep. So, yep. It was a total of 1,600, I believe, of applicants. And I believe 400 awards from LEAP. And 43 of those awards were Meridian Township businesses.
So could you talk a little bit about the criteria for receiving one of these grants?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Just 1 second. I know that the recipients were supposed to be initially small businesses or nonprofits. If they experienced any kind of, if they could, kind of provide an example of the hardship that they were experiencing through COVID. That was something to be shown. The size of their business. So they had to give like the numbers related to how many employees they had and what kind of business that they were, the industry, and obviously the location of the business. And I believe community impact and uniqueness of their product or service was included.
I see. So I'm just curious as to how long the process was in, reviewing and determining the recipients of the grants.
So as far as Meridian Township, because again, this is like a regional, it was a regional partnership. There were a lot of other players and organizations involved, but as far as Meridian Township, the township supervisor and the township manager, economic development director, and chair of the Economic Development Corporation and a few other boards and commission members got together and did kind of an intense deep dive looking at the businesses here in the township. We did a big promotion of it through a press release and social media of kind of asking the businesses to come forward and do an application. And we submitted over 47 business names to LEAP that we felt like would be good recipients of the award just on behalf of the township itself. And then those businesses did apply, and then the 43 of them got awarded.
What do you hope for the grant? I'm just curious what you hope the grants will do to the businesses.
Well, I spoke on it earlier, these are already established businesses. So I'm looking to, that hopefully whatever they did, the activities help them to retain their business going forward, whether that was staffing, whether that was paying back, outdated bills for rent and utilities and things like that. We've been making sure to share that kind of information with businesses so that they can stay and keep their doors open.
So I was talking to one of the owners, one of the businesses who received these grants, I believe last week, and I think he said something along the lines of, we can't officially say anything of, we can't officially say that we've received a grant, even though that we did. The township said they were going to announce something. I don't remember exactly what the wording was, but they said there was something that they couldn't announce to the public, I think. Do you know anything about? No? Okay.
No. I mean, we did a press release after LEAP let us know. Actually, LEAP did the original press release and sent out the list of all of the awardees from their grants. So I don't know what that's about.
Okay. I think, I'll be honest, I think that's what it was. I got to go back and look. Okay. I'm trying to think. I think for right now, that's all I have. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No, I would say that we're really very eager to develop the village of Okemos and the village of Hazlet. So if there's a new developer out there that's keen on doing, some pretty intense changes, but being a part of a great new project, those are the locations we're definitely looking for. And we really want to make sure that all of our local businesses are doing well and keeping well during this COVID time. So we're going to try to come up with some opportunities to assist whenever we can.
Oh, speaking of that, I also, if I remember correctly, you guys had, I think, one tenant, like there was an anchor store for the Okemos project selected. Was
There potentially could be, yes.
okay.
Yes.
So it's a potential, it's not official.
Well, I mean, this business is working with the developers, like they're doing a partnership with the developer right now. So I mean, I'm saying potential just because anything can happen. But right now the owners are working with this developer. Okay. And they're already a business in the DEA, so they're just gonna stay right there in downtown Okemos.
I'm just curious remind me, do you guys have any like developers signed on for this, like business wise?
We do, yes. So the application that just came through for the Redevelopment Fund, that was for a specific developer. The name of the developer is Village of Okemos. So they are the specific developers.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Like the stores going into those developers.
Oh, no, there's only one confirmed space for the commercial part of the development. Okay. And then the rest hasn't been, nothing's been identified. And then the upper floors should be residential.
Okay.